I'm in my mid 40s. I'm Gen X. And I tell people like I got out of college in 2001 and we were one of the first adopters to social media with MySpace. We only used it, not only, but primarily it was just for updating our family on,
Right.
we're getting married and having kids. And then after about 10 years in like the early 2010s, a lot of people in my kind of age group had this fatigue with social media. And where people kind of went to the next level is they actually started realizing how to use social media from a business perspective. Hi, Scott DeVore here. My close friends call me Free. You're joining us on the Free Factor podcast. I'm here with a special guest, Kate with Pineda Media. Kate, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me, Scott.
Absolutely. Yeah, looking forward to this. I know, I'm a recent member of Pineda Media and I've been working on my brand blueprint, working on developing kind of my structure as I'm focused on enhancing the content creation, video, social media that I'm doing. Not just about my company, DeVore Capital, which is a construction real estate development company, but me as an individual brand to bring awareness of kind of who I am as a person, but then to use those to actually draw some more attention to my business and the services that I have to offer.
I love that. So tell me, throughout this process, what have you learned about yourself that maybe surprised you? Do you have one of those moments where you're like, I hadn't really thought of that?
That's a deep question. So I guess what I've seen is there's a lot of influencers out there who are similar to me, entrepreneurs who have begun their journey of creating content and really kind of opening up about them as a person. And I just kind of see that as a lot of people are kind of similar. I think people like me, they think, oh, well, but then when you actually start doing it and you're getting into the community, you realize most people are kind of just like you. They probably have the same trepidations of actually doing it. But then once they do, it's just like one of those things that kind of frees them up, speak openly. And it's just a tool that helped them, not just from a business perspective, from a personal perspective. I've been a fan of Ryan for years, and I saw him probably about 9 months into his journey when he actually took content creation very seriously. So I kind of saw him. I don't even know how many followers he had, but then it's about almost 20 months, 22, it's not quite 2 years later. And I've just seen how much he's grown from a company perspective. Now he's not just doing real estate investing. He's doing other things, Pineda Media being one of them. I always knew that was the playbook. I'm in my mid 40s. I'm Gen X. And I tell people like I got out of college in 2001 and we were one of the first adopters to social media with MySpace and Facebook. And, we only used it, not only, but primarily it was just for updating our family on, we're getting married and having kids. And then after about 10 years in like the early 2010s, a lot of people in my kind of age group, we had this fatigue with social media. And where people kind of, I feel like, went to the next level is they actually started realizing how to use social media from a business perspective. Where if I would have went that path, I'd probably be in a different place, with business. But I kind of took the path of, well, I've used it for 10 years and kind of got away from it. But then people like Gary Vaynerchuk came along and made us a later adapter, like where they figured out the solution of actually using it to build a brand and build awareness. So I'm kind of late to the party. I've been thinking about this for years. And, a lot of the stuff that I've learned from with Pineda Media, just because I watched so many of Ryan's videos and all the other influencers. So I kind of had kind of a general thing, but what you guys brought to the table, and when I was talking with Javier, was you said two things: it's speed and expertise. And that's what in business, speed is number one. You can have great ideas, but if you're so slow to bring it to market or so slow to adopt it, you're going to be much further behind than where you are. That's kind of what sold me and got me to join up with you guys, and just looking forward to what you guys are helping me with and going on this journey.
I think that what kind of stood out to me when you were sharing your story and experience with that is like so many people are the same feelings and reservations maybe about showing up online, but yet what's cool for me with this process, or what I found with a lot of our clients, is that they realize, even though there's a lot of other like entrepreneurs and people similar to you that are kind of sharing similar stories and beliefs, there's something unique to just you because there's only one of you. And so the people that do this well, they tap into that. But it can be very hard because it's pretty vulnerable to like embrace those like unique sides of yourself and share it. But that's typically what connects to your audience.
Absolutely. definitely is kind of a private person. I know Ryan, he said he was kind of
Yeah.
private, but I think it takes confidence in yourself. If you share something that might, not sure if you wanted to get out there, it may impact somebody in a way that you didn't see coming. I got a background. It's probably not the most unique, but I'm sure it is definitely unique to most people where, I come from humble beginnings. My mom's from Vietnam, came here as a
Oh,
refugee
really?
at the end of the Vietnam War. No formal education, and my dad's American white dude. And so they divorced when I was 8, and then we ended up in the projects
Oh,
because
really?
that's just where we
Wow.
were. So then it was just kind of learning to survive in that type of environment. And, from there, my mom really stressed education, going to school. So, I did that and I got business degrees and I had a very successful corporate career for about 15 years. But I was always like a hardcore entrepreneur internally. So about 8 years ago, 2015, I just made this, I would say, this life-changing decision where I decided to quit corporate America and go all in as a full-time entrepreneur. Would start out just as a consulting company. I built it into this multi-million dollar construction real estate development company. And I feel I appeal to a lot of different people. Like I said, humble
Yeah.
beginnings. I appeal to people from that background. I'm also a corporate guy. I have my
Yeah.
MBA. I have a bunch of professional licenses. I'm a big hip hop guy. Play a lot of
Really?
sports and boxing. So just a lot of things. Like if I start talking about personally,
Yeah.
like Ada talks about a lot of his personal with
Yes.
baseball and everything. It definitely can reach some people, whether they found me because of those things or found me because they needed a roof on their house or
Yeah.
whatever. Just broad appeal and making content that hits all those areas.
When you made that decision to leave, was there like a moment where you just like, I gotta change. I gotta have a change here. I'm not gonna live like this anymore.
There was a lot of moments that built up to it. So I lived in LA at the time, doing extremely well. I was making 6 figures right out of college, for over 15 years and just climbing the ladder. Very successful. I've done billions of dollars of business. And I did a bunch of side hustles outside of it, real estate investing, direct sales, a lot of stuff. And so by that time I'm in my mid 30s, married for about a dozen years, got young kids. And I just remember just sitting and I was working in finance for this Fortune 500 company and also worked in the construction real estate side of the house. And I just remember just like ran a $300 million P&L. I just remember getting ready for a monthly report, going over the finances and sitting on my desk and looking out the window in LA where I'd rather be outside, enjoying the beautiful LA environment. I was just thinking, man, this isn't great. So I was thinking that. And then here's a story, and it's actually kind of cheesy. I love entrepreneurship. And when someone leaves a company, they send out this mass email like, hey, today's my last day. I enjoyed working with all you guys. So this lady I work with in HR, I think, she sends this email out because it was her last day. And today's my last day. I enjoyed working with all you guys. It's been great. I grew so much with the company. And then when she said what she was doing, she wasn't like leaving to go with another company. All she said was, my husband bought this, one of this wine painting. My husband bought one of these franchises that is doing so well that I got to help him in the business. This person can buy a wine franchise. Go all in entrepreneurship. So I just figured with all my experience and everything I've done, I thought like my full-time business endeavor at the time was just being a general business consultant because I've worked in so many different industries and so many different departments. And that's what I did. And I just believed in myself. I had really no backup plan. I didn't have any customers lined up. A little bit of savings, 401k, that's about it. But I made this decision too that if I was going to go in, I told my wife, so it wasn't like it didn't happen overnight, but happened over about not quite 6 months, but about 6 months when I decided this is what I was going to do. I decided to leave LA, move to Florida. So I've been in Jacksonville because I knew to make that transition, I wasn't like expecting to make a lot of money and to not really have any guaranteed income and stay in LA just wasn't going to cut it. And Florida, I knew was a lot cheaper. I had family who'd been in Florida for a couple decades. And I just like, all right, I'm going to make this career change. I'm going to make this geographical change at the same time. So just told my family, we left LA, we lived in South Bay, Palos Verdes, moved to Jacksonville, Florida.
How did you get your wife on board?
So we're Christians, so we got a strong faith, and told her it wasn't like I just made this decision because I come up with a lot of ideas. Being an entrepreneur, a vision guy, you always have ideas. So she knows that. But I told her I had some spiritual mentors that I was talking with, praying about it. I did a lot of fasting just to make sure it wasn't like a selfish thing that I wanted to pursue, but just to make sure that, hey, this was like my calling. And it wasn't like Scott, absolutely to do it. But I didn't get anything on the contrary that said, oh, no, don't do this, Scott. It's too risky. And so I just felt like this is kind of the path that, God led me into doing. And I was seeking, again, like I said, I wanted to make sure it wasn't a selfish thing, just like, oh, Scott just hates, he just hates his job. It's just whatever. Yeah. And I wanted to make sure it wasn't that.
How old were the kids at the time?
So they were pretty young. So my oldest was just finished first grade. And my youngest was finishing up preschool. She's getting ready to go into kindergarten. And here's the thing that actually made it tough for my wife, because we only lived in LA for a few years up to that point, but we actually got our kids into acting. in LA. My kids are extremely talented. So they're booking
Mhm.
commercials, like TV
Yeah.
commercials, and they have this budding career
Yeah.
as like child actor.
Yeah.
And that was hard too. And there is an acting community in Florida, Orlando,
Mhm.
Miami, and even up to Atlanta. So we're able to still pursue that with the kids when we moved to Florida. So that my wife a little bit say, hey, there's our opportunities. And my daughter, they booked a few things since we've been in Florida.
That's the hard part, I think, for a lot of entrepreneurs in making these decisions that they feel called to is like, how do you get your spouse on board and how do you know and it's the right decision? Can you tell us more about the fasting process and like what you got from these spiritual mentors?
Yeah. So I, just being a Christian, I know that, you read like Apostle Paul or any of these people, like whenever there was like this heavy thing going on in their lives or whatever, fasting was always something that we were commanded to do. So that just, when you deprive yourself of, your needs, food,
Mhm.
water, or whatever, you have clarity of mind, clarity of thought. And I
Yeah.
think it helps strengthen that spiritual connection that you're trying to make
Mm.
when you're actually trying to seek discernment and wisdom and things
Okay.
like that. So it was just something that, I wasn't like the biggest faster. And I
Yeah.
still do it today, even 8 years later, whenever there's definitely a big decision coming up, I'm like, all right, I need clarity in
Yeah.
mind. I'm going to deny the flesh, not eat for however long the Lord calls me to do. Normally, if I do like a water only fast, like I'll go like 3 days without eating. I think
Okay.
the longest I've ever gone was maybe like 4 or 5 days max. If I do
Okay.
like a dry fast, like no food, no water, I won't do this as long, like a day. I try to do them. The thing is, like, there's a great health benefit to doing it. So I also try not to do it just only for the health benefit. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a pretty fit guy anyway, so it's not like pretty athletic and I've been working out
Yeah.
for a long time. But it's nice to, after you get done with fast, you lose some, definitely see the six pack in full force.
Yeah.
So there's that benefit. But again, I try not to do it for like a selfish reason, for like an
Mhm.
intentional thing that I'm actually seeking.
I've never done it. I'm interested in learning more about it. And I bet you a lot of people are. Even people that maybe they don't have a strong faith. Maybe they would be interested in learning more and that would strengthen their faith.
Absolutely. I think everybody should, even if it's not even get some confirmation or
Mhm.
discernment on the decision, just from a health perspective, like it's good to just reset your system too fast.
Yeah.
Because, people with cancer, the cancer survives because it's eating your bodies, right?
Mhm.
Your
Mhm.
body's, cancer's not going to kill you right away. But when you fast, I think there's just so many good health. I think you reset your gut, you reset
Yeah.
all your systems, and it's just a cleansing. It's a phenomenal detox. Yeah, I think everybody should, whether it's, I do it because I am as a person of faith, but even
Yeah.
if you're not, it's still a good thing.
Did you always have a strong faith?
I've been for about 20 years, actually, almost 20 years ago.
So how old were you when tell me that story?
23 years old. It was actually Easter weekend when I was 23. I was just a year and a half or so out of school, making a lot of money, but I was traveling a lot. My wife today, we were kind of it was kind of at the time we were kind of broken up and things like
Okay.
that, and some health stuff. Like I had high blood pressure because I
Oh.
worked 80 plus hours a week. Someone who played sports all their high school and most of college, but now have high blood pressure because of all this work stress and relationship stress. And
Yeah.
I just was like kind of at a low place. And so I didn't grow up, my mom, she's Catholic, but she never like raised me to be Catholic. I never went to church or anything like that, but I was always seeking, something spiritual.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what it was. And I just remember it was Easter weekend. I didn't go to like an Easter service. I was actually traveling. I was in a hotel room, traveling for work in a hotel room at this low point. And I just remember on my knees praying or going through all the stuff, all stress, and plus, I had a lot of anger from like my dad, my parents' divorce that I carried with me. And I had some trouble I got in, even though I was doing well. I got in a lot of fights and had legal stuff, in my high school or college years. So I just had a bunch of stuff. And I just remember I just was in a hotel room traveling, and I think it was in Memphis, Tennessee, or Oklahoma City, I forget, one of those two. And I was just like praying, Lord, I just like something's going on, and I want things to be different. I don't want things to be. I just felt this presence of Jesus actually, and I don't remember because it's been 20 years exactly what happened, but I just know He was there with me. I was so scared, and I just knew like Jesus was real. He was my Savior, whatever that event was. And then I just started changing my life, since that point.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. Like I totally believe in that stuff happening too, like having those moments like that. What was it about with your dad? Because you said you were 8 years old when they divorced. So and were you raised by your mom then?
Raised by my mom, and she had different boyfriends that lived with us over the rest of my childhood. And my mom was a strong woman. She's like I live in Florida because of her. She's the reason why I moved here.
Oh, that's great.
Just a strong, independent, 90-pound, strongest Vietnamese woman you ever seen in life. Just a fighter. Left Vietnam because of the war. Just been through a lot. So, but then like my dad, he's I say this is probably where I got some of my entrepreneurial genes from, because my mom's a phenomenal cook. My dad was a good cook, and they met because he was working in a restaurant in the city that they met and eventually got together. And then I don't remember seeing my dad a whole lot as a kid because he was always working at nights, because of his job as a chef. But I just remember there was just a lot of fighting, drinking. They're young. That something bad happened and they split up. And then I thought they were gonna get back together initially. And then all of a sudden my dad met someone else, and then that was the reconciliation's over. They officially divorced. And then he got married really quick. He didn't even tell us he was getting married. So after he got married. And then he lived in the same town as us. While we're living in the projects, he lives in the same side of town. He has 2 kids with her and a daughter, similar to what he had with my mom. He get 2 sons and a daughter. And then I saw him like 4 times over 10 years.
Basically abandoned, and that he just replaced his whole family with a new one.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was. So I had a lot of that anger, right? So, but then kind of that spiritual change in me. I remember a couple years afterwards, after I became a Christian, I surrendered to the Lord Jesus as my Savior. Maybe 3 or 4 years after that, I just remember I was now married and actually just kind of going through, I think, premarital counseling or something.
Yeah.
Or something like that. There was something to me where I didn't want to have that anger on my dad and burden on me. I just remember praying, Lord, take this burden away. Anger. And boom, it was gone. And so again, I never thought my dad was the greatest after that. I never carried that burden of anger. The Lord, it was, the Holy Spirit that kind of released it. And then, my dad died a few years ago from cancer, but then I started having kids and I let him be involved. I let him know my kids. I let my kids call him grandpa. So again, he never was the greatest dad, but I was able to forgive him because, he was going through his thing,
Right. It's like you wonder what pain maybe he was carrying from his childhood.
His dad basically left him when divorced his family. So my grandma had 4 kids. When he was 16, they divorced, and his dad did the same thing. So the funny thing is, like, my aunts, I was closer with my dad. They'd be like talking to their brother, my dad, like, dude, what's wrong with you? You're doing the same thing our dad did. You said you wouldn't do it. Like, what's wrong with your brain?
But you stopped it. It's pretty cool.
That's the thing. Yeah, it's just like, I've never. Again, I say my dad. My dad's passed, but he was a weak person, and I say that because I'm just trying to speak truth. He could have done better. But he did. But I never wanted. A lot of people who come up like me, they like Patrick Bet-David talks about how his family was broken and his parents divorced a couple times.
Yeah.
All he wanted to be was a good dad, and that's it. I never. My kids would never know another person who's going to be in the house other than their dad.
Wow.
I just wanted to be a good dad.
I love that. That's I just think that's really honorable of you to know that and be so committed. That's really cool. Well, gosh, this was good. This is like a really good interview. I'm like, I want to know so much more. I got to watch the podcast. So I guess let's wrap it up with talking about personal branding a little bit more. And what can we expect from your podcast? What kind of guests are we going to be seeing? And what are we going to learn if we tune in?
Yeah, so it's going to be on brand, off brand. Primarily, I have a channel for my company that I'm just going to talk business. But for this channel, with the Free Factor podcast, it's off brand, like me, personal. I already got some guests lined up, actually shooting some with one of my good buddies, DJ Titus. We're talking hip hop, Christian hip hop DJ. I used to be a DJ in my teenage years. So we're going to do a video. I think it's going to be so this is like the 50-year of hip hop celebration. You probably have seen that all year long. But we're going to kind of talk about that, but kind of niche down into CHH Christian hip hop.
Okay. I do not know much about hip hop. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, okay. Well, then you got to tune into the channel.
Yeah.
So that I was meeting up with some half Vietnamese, and I was actually had lunch with a couple of Vietnamese real estate brokers who have their own brokerage. I invited them to do things so we can just kind of talk about the Vietnamese culture. So that the health and fitness I'm into, and really a lot of it's just going to be on entrepreneurship. So my nickname is Free. So when I was growing up, I was DJ Scott Free was my handle. And I love the word free, just like Pineda loves the word wealthy. So I'm going to try to own that word free. One of my dogs, I named him Freedom. He passed away a long time ago, but I just love the word free. Obviously it's funny. So free enterprise, being free. Cody Sanchez, one of my favorite quotes she says is, "You don't want to be rich, you want to be free." And that was me.
Sure.
I own a business. We do multiple millions of dollars a year, and it's not making me. Probably will make me rich, eventually. And that's obviously judge what that actually means. But you want to be free. So I look at it as first you want control, then you want to be free, and then rich and wealth will come later. I got control of my life and my time when I started my company 8 years ago. Now I'm like looking to solidify being free and encouraging reaching out. Like I said, I'm a Gen X guy, Asian Americans, people who come from different backgrounds. Like I think, someone told me a long time ago, they described me as being unassuming. And I love that because when I tell people from the projects, they're like, "What? I didn't
Yeah.
expect that."
No, I think you're full of surprises. Like even all these interests of yours, I never would have guessed. How old are the kids now?
15 and 13.
Okay, 15 and 13. And did you say it was a boy and a girl?
No, 2 daughters.
2 daughters. Okay, I have 2 daughters. Okay, what would you say, since we've kind of been talking, I would encourage you to incorporate talking about the relationship with your father and how you overcame that, I guess, like pain and resentment. And you said you lost your dad a couple years ago. I also lost my dad a couple years ago, but I always can remember like these things that my dad would say to me. And so I know you maybe weren't as close with your dad, but like since you were a dad of 2 daughters, what would you, one day you're no longer here, what is one thing that you would want them to always remember?
Right now, they're teenagers, so it's a challenge. And I saw your post today. I hearted it, and they're smart, but they're not trying as hard in school and math, and too many things are late. But they're also not very respectful. I grew up different. Like I grew up respected, even though my mom doesn't have formal education. And we grew up in the projects, we were on welfare. Eventually she did go to work and she's been a janitor her whole life since then. But I respected my mom so much. Thinking I wasn't like the well-behaved kid. I got in a lot of trouble, but I never disrespected my mom. And just makes me sad that my kids would speak in a disrespectful way, mostly to my wife, but to me too. So the thing that I was just having this conversation, I was like, I care more about their heart. I want them to do good in school, but I care about their heart. I don't want them to be disrespectful. So that's, I guess, if I had to answer, that's what's coming off the top of my mind. So I want them to be good people, be caring, kind, and have a good heart.
No, I love that. My dad, I'll tell you the one thing my dad used to say to me, since we're on this topic, he used to tell me that we're all born with an envelope, and like God gives us this envelope when we're born, and inside of it is everything that makes us unique and special. He said, but a lot of people, they never open it. He's like, so you have to make sure you open your envelope and then you have to share that with the world. And so I always think about that. And it's funny because now that is what I do help people do that, which is crazy. Just, that's like what personal branding is all about. So it's really cool. It's fun. But I am excited to learn more about you. Honestly, I really enjoyed this mini podcast and I want to learn more.